State pardons. Who decides and why victims are left out? Hi, I'm Sarah. Most people know me as Mama Bear. I'm not an attorney. I'm a mother who lost her son to a repeat drunk driver. And I learned the justice system by living inside it. What I share here is what I wish someone had told me while I was fighting for my Kenley. Because the system protects criminals with rights, lawyers, and information, while victims must fight to be heard. If you wait until something happens to understand the law, it's already too late. You do not have the time to think. You are barely breathing. I'm doing this in honor of my son, Dr. Kenley Jean Rainey, so victims don't have to learn the truth the hardest way. In my last video, I explained presidential pardons, how a president can legally pardon almost anyone, and how the power affects victims. Today's video is different. This video focuses on state pardons, who can grant them, how they work, and why victims are often shocked when they happen. It does not mean the person is innocent, no. And it does not erase what happened to the victims. The governor is the highest authority in the state. Depending on where you live, a governor may grant a pardon directly or approve one recommended by others. This is a political decision, not a trial. That's why victims need to understand this process, because knowledge is protection. This is not about politics. This is about what the system allows and how that feels when you are the one harmed. Victims may never know until it's too late. Yes, it is legal. Most victims think a conviction means it's over, and in the court it is. What many families don't realize is that outside the courtroom, states still have the power to change that outcome, often without ever telling the victims. That's not a legal loophole, it's an executive power most victims are never warned about. This is educational information, not legal advice, and laws vary by state. A state pardon is forgiveness. It is usually granted by the governor, a state pardon or clemency board. A state pardon can forgive a conviction, reduce punishment, restore certain rights. A pardon is not automatic. It is discretionary. That means someone in power decides. And while the defender has legal representation, keeping them informed, victims often have no guaranteed right to notice input or participation. A pardon doesn't just forgive the offender. It sends a message to victims. Your safety is secondary, and your loved one's life was disposable. A pardon doesn't rewrite history. It means the state chose forgiveness, even though the harm is real and the victim still lives with it. Yet again shows that victims do not matter in the court system. Criminals always come first. Victims don't understand this until they are forced to live it. Here is the part that victims are rarely warned about. In many states, victims may not be notified, consulted, or heard. A pardon, like a plea deal, can happen quietly. Sometimes victims only find out after the decision is already made. Being erased from a process that already took everything is devastating, I know, because it happened to me. Not with a pardon, but with a plea deal. If you do not live in the same zip code, victims may have the fight just to be included. I know this happened to me during the discovery phase and plea deal, and now during the parole phase. These are people who cause serious harm and death to innocent people and given their loved ones a life sentence like me. When punishment is forgiven without warning, victims are left unsure while protection still exists. Fear does not come from anger, it comes from uncertainty. But not knowing what changed, who decided, or whether their safety was even considered. Which it probably wasn't, as my safety was never considered. Talking about this is not wrong. Questioning this is not illegal. That right comes from the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. Asking why is not an accusation. It's accountability. Learning how the state pardons works means understanding that forgiveness can happen without a victim's voice. When a victim sees a person who killed their child receive a pardon, it doesn't feel like forgiveness. It feels like the loss happens all over again. A pardon can reopen trauma, destroy any sense of safety or finality, and leave families feeling erased by the decision that changes their lives forever. It tells victims without saying it out loud that the system was willing to move on, even though they never can. The offender may be released from legal consequences, but the victim is left carrying the weight, fear, grief, and unanswered questions with no appeal, no warning, and no way to be heard. A life sentence. That's why I say the system protects criminals with rights, while victims are left to survive. And my survival is honoring my son Kenley, who spent his life helping everyone he met, by making sure his story is never erased. In my next video, I will talk about parole. This is the fight ahead of me this year. Follow me as I navigate a confusing and overwhelming process no victim should have to face alone. If you're a victim or someone who believes the truth matters, follow and subscribe. Walk the next year with me. This channel exists to give victims the information the system never volunteers. This video is for educational purposes only, based on publicly available information and personal experience. I am not an attorney. Laws, policies, and victim participation vary by state and can change. This is Mama Bear. Thank you.